In episode 5, Ben and Faye get into an argument about what's more important. Ben feeling like they should go after the guy who killed their brother and sister, and Faye thinking that they need to deal with whatever it is in the basement. Eventually, Faye kind of wins out. Ben decides that if they're going to beat this thing, they need to know what's on the other side of it. So he has Grace use her eyeball. He basically puts the eyeball inside of the orb, and Grace starts getting sucked in. Eventually, the eyeball gets snapped off inside, and it leaves Grace with just a wire sticking out from where the eyeball should be. And Grace tells Ben and Faye that basically a black hole. Faye reminds Ben that this is big. They're going to need help. But Ben says no. Harlan first, then we'll deal with this. Now, over at the hotel, Victor wants answers from Harlan, but Harlan kind of tries to run away. Instead of giving Victor an answer, the two end up getting into a pissing contest over who could destroy who. It doesn't really end great for both of them. They end up getting hurt. Not mortally, but, it's going to leave a bruise. Harlan finally explains to Victor that it was all an accident. He was angry, and on the day that his mother died, he felt Victor. It was that tuning fork that he had talked about earlier. But when he reached out, he realized it wasn't Victor at all. He had no idea that it was their mother's. He didn't mean for any of that to happen. He tried to break the connection, but it was too late. That was the moment that he decided to hide himself away just to be safe. Until now, that is. Harlan then says, I need to tell your family what I did to them. And Victor cuts him off and says, no, you can't. What you did has bigger consequences than you will realize. A lot of people got hurt, so we're going to have to be very careful about how we tell them. Victor then heads down to the lobby, runs into Luther, and Luther notices that Victor has a cut on her face. He figures Harlan did it. Then Diego shows up, and Diego has a bruise on the back of his neck. Luther also figures Harlan did that as well. Allison shows up a little while later, and she's got bruises all over her hands, and Luther is convinced that Harlan did that. Even though Harlan didn't do any of it, this is enough for Luther to say, let's hand him over. But Victor isn't quick to do that. As they're all kind of standing around, Five and Lila come through the portal. They're back. One problem, the briefcase they used to get back is destroyed, and it's the last briefcase on Earth. When Allison hears about the briefcase being the last one, she gets really pissed off because her hopes of going home are dashed. But the big surprise is Lila. After hearing what she heard from the founder, she gives Diego a big hug, telling him, turns out there's less time to hold grudges than I had planned. Luther then pulls Diego aside and asks, did you and Allison get in some kind of fight last night? And Diego says, oh yeah. I saw her do things I've never seen her do before. She just needed to blow off some steam. And even though Diego says she's good, Luther does not believe it. He's as concerned for his sister as Diego was. Five then tries to call a family meeting, but Diego sees Stanley walking around with a cleaning supply, so he goes after him. He misses the family meeting, and he misses it when Five says, our family reunion here in this timeline has brought a Kugelblitz. Five tells him the best plan is to go back in time and destroy the paradox. That would stop the Kugelblitz before it starts, but they're not able to do that because of the briefcase situation. They need to start thinking about Plan B, and that's when Klaus and Diego join them. Klaus was dead. He went to the great beyond. He even talked to his mother, who gave him a message. She tells him he's spending all this time and energy running from the exact thing that he's chasing. He simply can't see what's right in front of him this whole time. And then when he looks down in his soup, the ingredients create a buffalo. He then comes back to life, just as Diego and Stanley are enjoying some father-son time by trying to get rid of a body. Klaus starts trying to get his bearings straight. Everybody's kind of thinking of a plan, and that's when the hotel gets hit with yet another Kugel wave. Although this time, it takes out more than just a few people. Five figures they have 4, maybe 5 days before the rest of existence is gone. Luther then tells the group that the Sparrows said if they just hand over Harlan, they can get past this, start working together to save the world. Victor, however, is continuing to protect Harlan at all costs. Luther asks Victor, why are you protecting this guy? It's clear he's got some kind of hold over you. And Victor just feels bad for Harlan. He tells the group, Harlan didn't ask for any of this. If we hadn't gone back to 1963 and I hadn't saved him. But Luther cuts him off and says he's the reason we're in this mess. And he's also our only way out of it. They start arguing amongst themselves. Victor saying, we'll just overpower the Sparrows. And most of the group saying, hand over Harlan. He's insignificant. We need access to the Kugelblitz. In the end, Victor's kind of guilt-tripped into agreeing with everybody. But she tells the group, I'll go get him. And when she goes upstairs, Harlan knows. The connection they have, Victor can't hide anything from him. She apologizes to Harlan that they couldn't fix things, but Harlan says, "We never tried together." And Victor, who is open to just about any suggestion that doesn't involve handing over Harlan and the Sparrows, is all for trying. As Luther awaits Victor handing over Harlan downstairs, he sees Allison drinking by herself, and he asks, "Should I be worried about you?" Allison then looks at him and says, "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep losing people. It's not fair." Luther walks over and gives her a hug, but that hug turns into a kiss. Luther pulls away because he's got Sloane now, and when Luther even mentions that name, it sets Allison off. She yells at him, "You're blowing me off for some knockoff you've known for 5 minutes?" And Luther yells, "What do you even want from me? If you had Ray or Claire back, would you even be here? Look, I get you need a distraction, but you can't use me for that." And she yells, "I can if I want to." She then uses her "I heard a rumor" trick to say, "I heard a rumor you want me." He walks over and kisses her, but he does it a little too aggressively. And Allison's wish kind of becomes a nightmare. She ends up having to push Luther off of her. When Luther eventually snaps out of it, they're both disgusted. Allison starts walking back up to her room, and that's when she catches Victor sneaking out Harlan. Victor tells Allison, "I can still save him. I can take back his powers. I can get him out of town. After that, I can focus on the Sparrows or the Kugelblitz." Allison tries to tell Victor that's a bad idea, but Victor yells, "Look, I owe him this." Allison agrees to be the one to take Harlan somewhere safe, and Victor is very appreciative of that. Victor then walks in the hotel lobby where Klaus, Five, and Luther are waiting, and they notice she doesn't have Harlan, and they figure that she must have let him go. She explains that Harlan's death is not going to stop the Kugelblitz. It's just going to be another tragedy on top of another tragedy. Victor vows to find another way, but Luther's fed up and says, "Well, congrats. You destroyed everything. Again." Five and Klaus then decide to start having a drink, and Five is pretty broken up about seeing his future self die the way he did. He always kind of thought he'd be able to outrun death, but now seeing this wizened old man with no arms die with a bad tattoo didn't sit well with him. He throws the tattoo on the table, and Klaus recognizes the symbol. It's the symbol for a biker group called the Mothers of Agony. That's just the hint that Five needed. He goes, finds the Mothers of Agony clubhouse, walks all the way in the back where members are getting tattooed, and that's when he finds them. Pogo. So Five ended his night in a biker bar. Luther headed over to the Sparrow Academy because he ended his night with Sloane. Diego and Lila ended their night together in bed, having sex. And I ended my night alone. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.